Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the chambers for the 2018 Kalispell Primary Forum. We have our county commissioner candidates with us this evening. And to my left, we have Commissioner Gary Kruger.
Hello.
Ronald Skees, Randy Brodell, and Jay Scott.
Hello.
We're going to start this evening, and I'm going to start over at my left and work my way to the right. Have you guys introduce yourselves. And while you're doing that, I'd like you to describe the best qualities and skills that you uniquely possess that make you the best choice for the commissioner's office.
Thank you. My name is Gary Kruger. I'm the current county commissioner of Flathead County. I serve the citizens of Flathead County as a whole, and I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to be your county commissioner. I've been a county commissioner for the last 5 years. I think you can look out into your community and you can see all of those achievements that have been done in the Flathead County as far as things like Agency on Aging. We've upgraded our jail to add 40 beds so we have more room in our jail so that our law enforcement can go out and do their jobs. We've upgraded our green box sites all around the county, which is an important thing to me. I sit on the Flathead County Landfill Board. It was really important to make us look good to our public that is coming here or to the visitors that are coming to this valley. I think that those financially and fiscally, we have a very sound county financial future, and that's very important to me. I want to be able to say 10 years down the road or whatever, that I look back when I'm no longer a county commissioner, that, hey, we made good decisions, and I want other people to be able to say that. That's my goal. I believe in the process of leaving it better than you found it. And we were in good shape in Flathead County. We were coming out of a recession at the time. I promoted jobs when I was running 6 years ago. I believe that I've lived up to that promise that I've made to the community. And thank you for this evening.
Skees?
Hello and good evening. I'm Ronald Skees. I am a fiscal conservative, and I am running to be your representative in the county commission seat. I want to represent you. What makes me uniquely qualified is that I'm a listener. I have spent time getting to know our community deeply, to know what the needs are, and then ways that we can serve those needs. I look at things as a whole, not just one side, but how all of the sides have to be worked out to be able to solve the problems. If you focus on one part of the problem, you're not able to completely look at the whole problem. I'm forward thinking. I think about all of the things that we are doing currently and how those things will impact our future. Here, today, tomorrow, generations to come. Building a legacy. That's why I look forward to serving you as your county commissioner.
Mr. Brodell.
Good evening. I'm Randy Brodell, and I am the conservative running for Flathead County Commissioner. There's three critical issues that I expect to face as I'm elected into the new commissioner's position. First is protection of our property rights in the Flathead. Over the past 8 years, as a representative for House District 9, and that is Northeast Kalispell and the Evergreen District, I fought to reduce regulations and to protect our citizens from the overreach of the federal government, state government, and tribal governments. As your county commissioner, I will continue to do that every day. The second critical issue facing the commissioners today is public safety. On the forefront is the county jail and the 911 center. With over 3 decades in public safety, I am very prepared to provide the leadership and the commitment to lead the commission, lead the municipalities, and lead the sheriff as we work through the issues with public safety that need to be fixed. My third point is our county budget. With 22 years managing local government budgets and 8 years working with the state government budget, I have the experience to work with the county manager to maintain a frugal budget, much like what we have in our own homes and businesses. Again, I'm Randy Brodell, and I am the conservative running for Flathead County Commissioner.
Okay. Mr. Scott.
I'm Gerald J. Scott, run for County Commissioner, and I'm honored to be here. I'm saddened that the longest-serving County Commissioner passed away last Sunday, Howard Geip. a true friend to everybody in the valley, and he did his best to make everybody happy and safe in this county. I would like to run for county commissioner, or I am running for county commissioner, for several reasons. My family's lived here for several generations. I've got my wife and I have been married for 42 years. Both of us born here. We have 3 daughters and 7 grandchildren, all live and work here in the valley. I'd like to work on public safety, and I'd like to work on budgets. I've owned 3 businesses, and I've worked for the county fairgrounds for 14 years, managing a budget. When I was at the fairgrounds, I built 3 buildings there to help improve the budget of the fairgrounds, to get it off the tax rolls and be more self-sufficient, which it's gaining still today. It's getting better and better. I like to be a problem solver. One of my strong points is I'm a good listener. One thing I've found as I'm traveling around the county talking to people over the last few months is there's a real disconnect between the county commissioner's office and the general public. Most people complain is they don't listen to where they think they should. I'm not saying that's a true fact. I'm just saying that's what I've heard from different meetings I've had. But I like to work. It's my hobby of working. I've always had a strong work history. Even when I worked at the fairgrounds, I like to work 15 to 18 hours a day. Some people like to build birdhouses or go fishing. I enjoy working. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Randy, you mentioned the 911 center, so I have a question for all 4 of you in the 911 center. Because as Kalispell, we are a partner through interlocal agreement in the 911 center. And what I want to know, in your opinion, what are the challenges we face at the 911 center and with the interlocal operating agreement? And what solutions would you propose for the funding of the 911 center? I'll start with you, Mr. Burdell.
So as we look at the 911 center, we have, this has been in place for several years, but it came into place with a period of time of allowing the municipalities and the county and the sheriff's office to decide what their budget was when they combined those services. And what happened was the budget over the year of they were preparing this, the budget for the 911 center that was available got skinnied down. So we walked into the 911 center with a budget that wasn't adequate to do what needed to be done to begin with. So since then, we've gone to the voters twice. The voters have turned down additional money. And so we have to recognize that, one, the voters are not satisfied with what we're doing with the 911 center as it is. So, and the second is that we have some issues there that need to be fixed. I've met with Rick Sacca, who is the Office of Emergency Management, spent some time with him looking at solutions. We can get there. I believe that we have the leadership in place there to get us to a point where we can carry the 911 center on the current budget for the next 2 years. During that time, we need to be coming back together as the county, as municipalities, and the sheriff's office, looking for a solution that works, either within the current budget as we know it now, or a restructure of the county budget to get us there. I believe it can be done. I believe the leadership is in place to get it done. The new sheriff coming in will need to be a key player in that. And I would support that. My experience in public safety will help drive that. I can represent the commissioners very well.
Any particular thoughts on how to fund it in the future?
No, because if we came in with thoughts right now, they would be just like going to the voters and saying, give us more money. Because we can't patch it together till we come up with a plan, and the plan has to be in place before we look at what the funding mechanism is going to look like.
Okay. And Ms. Skees.
So the 911 center, I think part of what has to be in the discussion is what is the 911 center and what value does it offer to us as a community. The 911 center is a communication tool, and through that there is a great opportunity of providing that extra bit of communication that we need for public safety. I went out and took a tour, and I am incredibly impressed by the dispatchers out there. They know their job, and they do it quite well. The interlocal agreement was an agreement so that the services that are being provided in one center is taking the cost from each of the individual communities and each of the individual cities. so they don't have to have all of the infrastructure that's needed, like the computer systems that are out there at the 911 center. The future funding, there is a committee that's looking at the future funding, and they're coming up with some ideas. They are solidly funded for the next year to 2 years, and then let's see what the future funding committee comes up with. They have some really good ideas for some partnerships, as well as some grants, and looking at what is available through other funding sources. I want to make sure that part of the conversation is, what do we lose if we lose the 911 center? When I was out on the tour, up on the wall is a story of a woman in Florida who got lost to 911 because there wasn't this smooth transition of communication. She was lost. She could have been saved. She had called 911, but they weren't able to communicate and patch her through to the next 911 center. It breaks my heart. So I just want to make sure that in the conversation we remember the importance that this center offers to us for our safety.
Okay. Mr. Scott?
On our 911 center, I had the misfortune on this weekend having to use a 911 center when I was laying in a ditch after a vehicle accident. We have second to none the best 911 center, I think, in the county or in the state or even in the country. It took just minutes to get a fire truck from the Summers, ambulance from North Kalispell, and High Patrol there, all quickly helping us. But I think the county just needs to reallocate their money. Possibly the county should run a 911 center and have the city's help on as a board and get a large committee. I think that it can be funded easily without raising taxes. It's just going to take some work and planning, but you need to have a sufficient board and actually have the interest to sit down and solve the problems and kind of not like kicking a can down the road. But it can be done without raising taxes, I'm positive. I've talked to people out there. I've gone out and looked at it. They do a wonderful job. They're extremely dedicated. I think we're very fortunate, but I still think that it can be funded easily. But I believe that the county should operate a 911 center, and I believe that with this committee, it could be easily solved.
Okay. Commissioner Kruger?
Thank you. I believe, could you restate that question?
Yes. In your opinion, what are the challenges we face with the 911 center and the interlocal operating agreement? And what solutions would you propose for future funding of the operations?
I think that question, I feel sorry for the public a little bit because it's a very complicated issue in the 911 center. The 911 center is an interlocal agreement between the cities, the 3 cities and the county. The funding model is built out of that interlocal agreement. The OES, or Office of Emergency Services, is a county agency. It's not a part of the 911 or the call center that we are talking about here, I believe. That's why I asked for the re-question, was what are we talking about? Are we talking about the county's portion, OES, FSA, or emergency services, or are we talking about 911? If we're talking about 911, which that is what the question is, the 911 center is meeting its funding obligations. We have professionals there. The dispatchers and the people running the center are doing what they are supposed to do. Does there need to be some tweaking to the funding model? Oh, absolutely. And it's been an ongoing issue, and I shouldn't even say it's an issue. It's been an ongoing discussion between the city and the county of how, with the sheriff involved, of how that should be funded. In my mind, as a commissioner, I would say the funding model should be that the county does in fact run the operations of the 911 center. We can then bring the 911 center's capital improvements program or plan into our current one. We have an excellent plan for our capital improvements. We go out 20 years, we fund to 5 years, so we're funding 20%. This is what we do in the county, is we make sure that we're planning for the future. And I think that the 911 center itself could in fact benefit by that. And then basically from that point on, it's just how many calls are being used by the city of Kalispell, how many dispatches are by the city of Columbia Falls, and how many are by the county, and those can be allotted very easily to each one of those entities. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Kruger. I'm going to start with Commissioner Kruger on this question. Commissioners, you understand the city of Kalispell and the commissioners have had at times a contentious relationship and at other times great partnership. And one of the things I want to ask you about is I want to get your opinion the plan that Kalispell has for the redevelopment of our downtown business district, the realignment of Main Street, and the possible discussion of reduction from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And then tying in with that, a question of whether or not we should work with the county and prioritize TAC funds for an expansion of Willow Glen to carry more traffic on that side of town.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll give you
now
2.5 minutes.
Since there's 3 questions in there, do
Yeah.
I get 9 minutes?
Now you get 2.5.
Anyway, where to start? You know, I was a part of the commission that did in fact write a letter that said, we think that the realignment of Main Street to a 2-lane Main Street is premature and probably should be put on the back burner. The reason we did that is because if you work with Department of Transportation, and like we do at the county, and you listen to the Department of Transportation, you'll find that they don't have an unlimited pot of money. So when they're going to try to allot money to the Flathead area or to the northwest Montana, we have some roads that need work on them. We have Whitefish Stage, we have West Reserve, 206 needs some work on it. So there's a lot of county roads out there that do in fact need work on them. Or not, and those are state roads in the county, excuse me. Those are not county roads. Those are state roads in the county. They need work, and the state has got those roads on a plan. If we tell the people that are allotting the money, we want you to stop and work on the realignment of Main Street, we may not see some of these other projects come to fruition. Those other projects are very important to me that we do look at, in fact, Whitefish Stage and those types of roads. And then if we tell them we need to build a $60 million east side bypass, we're just not going to get any work done because the state isn't going to have money. And if we fight the state too hard, you have to remember, unhappy people work slow. And I do not want to put the Department of Transportation in that position of being unhappy with how we are asking or how we're trying to move projects forward, because they might just get onto the back burner. I remember living out in the northwest of Kalispell on Highway 93, when there was a plan to build a road, there was a lot of complaint, and then all of a sudden the plan to build the road took 15 more years. I do not want to see that in this county. That's just what could happen if we get too pushy about what we're doing on Main Street. I hope that answered all of the questions.
Fairly close.
Fairly close.
Fairly close. And I'm going to jump back over to Mr. Scott on this now. Repeat the question. Okay. So looking at, okay, please tell us your opinion of the plan Kalispell and its citizens have developed for our downtown business district. And do you believe we should retain a 4-way highway as our main street? And also, should we, Kalispell and the county commissioners, look at prioritizing TAC funds for an expansion of Willow Glen to carry more traffic and provide relief for downtown traffic? Wasn't exactly the way I stated to Mr. Kruger, but general flavor.
I think on the Main Street, I think the citizens of Flathead County have to realize that the city is part of the Flathead County also. It's not just the city. But I do think that the citizens of the city have elected a city council that they had confidence in, and they have spent a great deal of time on the downtown trying to line up the highways to do that they think, and they're not doing it just to waste time or waste money, but that's their plan and their goal. And before I would really sign off one way or the other, I'd have to look at it much closer, but I think we have to have confidence in our elected officials, whether it's in the county or in the city. I think if the state had money, east side bypass through Willow Glen, where you can come out there by Snappies, would be fantastic. I don't know if that is the largest issue we face today when you try to get from Eisinger's to Whitefish Stage on Reserve. It's such a bottleneck that it's a real hazard, and if emergency traffic had to get through there, it would really be tough. I don't think that the city or the county should make a really quick decision. on changing the highway, because once it's changed, you're never going to get it changed back. I think that, the biggest thing is safety, and that's what we have to look at before we change the highway. Or leave it like it is, it still comes down to a safety factor. And I know some people think, well, yeah, but we can improve the city businesses along Main Street. But I would go back to the safety of the citizens more so than a business. I'm pro-business, but I'm also for safety for families.
Okay. Ms. Keys?
Change is hard, isn't it? I know that the tadpole probably is not very comfortable when he loses his tail to gain his legs. But change is happening. The downtown plan has been really thought out, and it is something that is meeting the future needs for the Kalispell residents. Just like all the plans in the communities have been thought out and have been worked on, this is one that has been thought out and worked on. I have some thoughts on the Willow Glen as being grown to be a bypass or, an alternate route. If it can't be fully built out, I would not like to see what happened with our current bypass, with the roundabouts and not being as efficient for carrying the traffic that it should be. So I would really like to see that get built out for those roundabouts to be put as those off-ramps so that it is pulling traffic away from downtown. And also another thing is we need to have the conversation about an east-west or west-east connector. Where are we putting all the traffic? Is it dumping out into an area that is making it very difficult for us to get around, especially in high traffic times and seasons? So in all, I know the plan. I've looked at the plan. I've worked on the plan. I think it's a great vision for the future of Kalispell. It is what Kalispell residents and businesses want and need so that they can meet their aspirations. But we do also have other priorities in the county. So I support each of the individual cities with their aspirations, but I'd like to see us come up with some solutions where we have a completed route.
Okay. Mr. Brodell?
So, the state of Montana Transportation Department has a 20-year plan. Excuse me, they are 20 years behind in their funding. So when you think about that, and you think about what they look at today and the projects that they're doing, they were looking at 20 years ago. So as you drive out Reserve, you drive out Whitefish Stage, you see the result of that. Those plans were put in place 20 years ago, but the funding wasn't there. So now the plan that's being implemented is behind. The number one issue that we have to deal with, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the county, is safety of our citizens. And if we're not doing that, if we're doing it just because we think it look cool, we have to be really careful because we have to provide for the safety, and that's one of the responsibilities of state government, one of the responsibilities of county and city government. So that's got to be our priority. If we look at the bypass and what happened with the bypass, the intent was to get the trucks out of the downtown. Did it happen? No. When you drive on the bypass, do you see lots of trucks? No, you see cars. So it took the visitors that we wanted to capture as they were going through downtown Kalispell, and we shoved them out of the city. They went around the city and they're off. And so now we're trying to recapture those by narrowing down, or as an idea, narrowing down to 2 lanes downtown Kalispell. We have to remember too that the state is the decision maker in this. We can provide input, we can provide suggestions, but it's the state money and it's the state highway. So getting back to the safety issue, is it going to be a couplet around one side of the courthouse? Is it going to be around both sides? However, it has to be focused on protecting the lives of our citizens. Is it the right thing to do Willow Glen? The money's not there. It was probably the right thing to do rather than the bypass on the west side, in my estimation, but we didn't do that. So now we have bypass over here. So we've got to do this incrementally with a little bit of money that the state has. We have to make good decisions, and we have to work together between the county and the city to get that done with a recommendation for the state.
Okay. Now I've got a question for two of you, Ms. Skis and Mr. Scott. Please describe the three biggest challenges the commissioners will face in the next 3 years, and how will you approach those solutions? Ms. Skis.
Sorry, I wanted to write that down so I wouldn't have to ask it again. Three biggest challenges. One is going to be keeping our budget tight so that we're not increasing taxes. That's one of the things I keep hearing is don't take any more money. I need to stay within my budget. The county needs to stay within their budget. The jail. What are we going to do about detention center and detention center space? I believe that there's a lot of great people in this community who are looking at ways for education on drug prevention and treatment. And I'd like to see how that's going to be able to help impact some of the problems that we're seeing in our community with the need for the jail space. Also with the jail, there's the need for the women's detention center to be increased, or the space for the women to be increased. But the biggest challenge, I think, is going to be bringing our juveniles back to the Kalispell and Flathead area. We need to bring our juvenile detention center back here so that we're treating here in our community. And finally, I do believe that a big part and a big thing that we need to be thinking about is communicating to our community. We're not communicating the needs, so our community isn't understanding it. We're not involving the community in the solutions. I think we need to be able to increase the community involvement.
Okay. Mr. Scott.
The three main things that we're going to be facing in the near future, correct? Is the first one's going to be, I would think, it's going to be the jail. It's a major issue. It's going to cost a lot of money. I think that I have to remind you, I'm not in law enforcement or medical, but I do think that drug use here in the valley is more of an illness than it is a crime. I mean, it is certainly a crime, but it's an illness. And maybe we need to work more with a drug court or different avenues to help some of these people to get, that aren't violent offenders, to get them back on track so we can keep families together, so we have less single families, so less people on food stamps and welfare that are actually could be working families. But I think we have to work towards solving some of our drug issues, and that would be through the hospitals or through the sheriff's office and through the community. The one thing, you know, when you talk about the jail, everyone says you can't raise taxes because that's the biggest thing that I've heard, you know, for about the last 6 months is everybody's taxes are going up, but mostly it's schools. It's not so much the county, it's more schools. I wouldn't go around making a bold statement that I will not raise your taxes, but I'd certainly resist raising taxes. As the population grows and the needs grows, the needs is going to cost money. We need to work on our infrastructure. There's nothing that we can do in the county to make the county or the community safe without spending money. With all the new houses going in, new businesses, that's added income that's coming into the tax base, but again, a lot of that goes to the schools. But I would resist raising taxes. I think, you know, the safety is the next thing we have to work on. With the growing population, there was a time I could sit down to Center Mall and I knew about 90% of the people that walked in there. I can go down out there now for a day and a half and not know a handful of people because people are moving in here so fast and so great. This is a wonderful place to live, and people have known it for some time. So with that becomes safety. We have to work on our safety through the sheriff's office and through the health department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next question, I'm going to start with Mr. Brodell and go to Commissioner Kruger. As you understand, over the last several years, we've been working on major redevelopment projects in the city of Kalispell. The core area redevelopment has been one of our key hallmark projects that we've been trying to get done, really with the focus of growing our economy, growing our tax base within the city of Kalispell. Can you please explain whether or not you believe Flathead County Economic Development Agency and Montana West Economic Development are valuable partners helping to meet this goal of growing the economy? Mr. Brodell?
Absolutely. I believe that anytime we have a group or groups in our community working on increasing the economic development in our county. We need to be good partners with them. They need to be good partners with us. A good example of that is the rail park that has been planning for, I believe, at least about 7 years. And I think that we're moving ahead with that. If you haven't been by Whitefish Stage and taken a look down into the pit, it's an incredible development. There are issues that come with that, and that's the money. And so as the process goes through and how you plan for a project like that, the nonprofit, I'm trying to think of the acronym. You just said it, Mark.
Montana West Economic
Yeah,
Development.
Montana West Economic Development. As they move ahead with this, they need to also move ahead with how that's going to be funded. Now, there's some struggles going on right now with how that's going to be done and who's going to backstop that. And I would just caution the current commission to be very careful when they put the people in debt to pay for that, because that plan needs to be moving along at the same rate that the planning process is for that type of development. So are they a good partner? Yes. Have they done several different projects in the city that have been well-funded, well-planned out? Absolutely. Is the rail park one of those? Yes. We've got a little bit of bobble on the funding right now. I think that will come together. But again, I just caution us as leadership to be very careful when we commit the citizens of 20 years from now if we commit their dollars today.
Thank you, Mr. Brodell. Commissioner Kruger?
Thank you. Yes, there is a plan for the Glacier Rail Center. The plan is coming to kind of coming down to the last wire here by the first part of June. CHS, Senex Harvest States, has to have approximately $8 million paid to them so that they can relocate their buildings to the rail center. Most everything else is in place. The rail park, the rails are going to be built. The city of Kalispell has put a lot of effort and dollars into that. There is a partnership. The unfortunate thing is, any new business, and we'll call this a new business or a new venture, has trouble with startup monies. And those startup monies can cause problems, and going to the bank and basically getting that money to start up sometimes is difficult. Fortunately, for the rail center, fortunately for the city of Kalispell, and I believe fortunately for Flathead County, our frugal efforts in Flathead County with savings accounts for use for other things in the future allows us to have the unique ability to actually loan that money to that project. And I believe that we're very close, and I believe that that will come to fruition, that we can, in fact, keep the project moving forward. And it's not done because we are putting the taxpayers at risk. The project will pay 4% interest back to the county, just like they would pay 4% interest to a bonding company. But it's actually our own taxpayers that have a savings account held within our county because the commission, the current commission, has been so careful not to spend the money, not to spend every last dime. We have that ability to do that. You can thank our commissioners, and it's just that we've saved it. I think it's going to come to fruition. I hope it goes forward. It's my desire. It's economic development. It's jobs. It is good for this community.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. We're going to go in alphabetical order because I'm trying to come up with all the different ways to do this. And what I want to do is just 1 minute to give your close and request for the people's vote. Mr. Brodell.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you to Eric for putting up with us. He's the guy behind the scenes back here. And thanks to all of you for coming out and giving us a chance to let you hear us and make your own opinions about us. So what makes me the best candidate? So given my 8 years in the state legislature, I have a very proven track record of being a conservative and a very strong track record in how I vote. So you can check that out. But but you can know that by taking a look at my vote record. This experience, together with my backgrounds as a Kalispell fire chief, as an owner-operator of a small business here in the valley, ranks me as the most qualified candidate for this position. If I'm the new county commissioner, my focus will remain on public safety, protection of personal property rights, and no new taxes. Thank you.
Mr. Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, for having us. Thank you to the city of Kalispell for having us. As your county commissioner for the last 5 years, I've worked very hard to make sure that our county has got a financial security. We do have financial security. We haven't raised your taxes. When you look at your tax bills, we're not the ones that have been going up. In fact, I think Mr. Brodell said we were actually lower than some of these others than we were 5 years ago. That's fortunate for our taxpayers. And I don't have to promise that I'm not going to raise taxes. I can tell you that I haven't been raising taxes. But yet there's some really essential services out there that are being provided that weren't being provided 5 years ago. We have a new senior center down at the south end of Kalispell. We've worked on our senior buildings in Columbia Falls and Whitefish. And we've done it without raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. Mr. Scott.
What makes me the best candidate is I feel that it's a strong work ethic. One of my strongest points is I'm a good listener. I don't make knee-jerk decisions on things. I believe in everybody should be heard, and you find the middle ground. You have to negotiate sometimes, but you don't give in. You have to negotiate and work together. I've been in business. I've owned 3 different businesses that I've sold. I've been an employer. I've been an employee. I've been a county employee. I've worked well with other people. I feel like I have a personality that I can get along with just about anybody. I'm the only candidate that said from the very start that I'd be a full-time county commissioner. I have no other interests and really no other hobbies other than working. But that's my goal, is to be a county commissioner, work hard for the citizens of the Flathead County, keep your taxes down. But again, I won't say I would not absolutely raise your taxes. I certainly don't want to, but I would resist raising taxes. I think, people go out here and say, well, we'll absolutely not raise taxes. That's a good way to ask for votes, but it's just unrealistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Keys.
Thank you for coming out, and thank you for tuning in on TV. What makes me a qualified candidate to be your county commissioner? That I deeply care about our community. That I've gotten involved to find out what are our community needs and how can we address those community needs. I take the time to listen. I take the time to get to know all of the sides of the issue. I talk to the people who the impacts might affect on issues. I get to know each of the individual communities. The best part of this campaign has been the listening sessions. Everybody has such fantastic ideas and ways that we can curb government, ways that we can be more involved, and ways that we can absolutely provide for the future, for the safety, for our families. So I look forward to serving you as your county commissioner, and I hope to earn your vote on June 5th.
Great. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight and wish you the best of luck come the election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.